Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, and this is The Rise and Fall of Dino Crisis, Future of the Franchise Explained. The authority of Capcom in the video game industry is unquestionable. Over the years, they have delivered countless hits, and Dino Crisis is just another feather in their cap. When the first Dino Crisis was released in the year 1999, the initial response was overwhelming. It was a survival horror game with dinosaurs, and the concept was an immediate crowd favorite. However, critics did point out some of its obvious similarities with Resident Evil, and many went on to say that it was more like a Resident Evil game, just with dinosaurs. It had the potential to reach the glories of that franchise, but somehow, things didn't quite work out as expected.
Don't sweat it. I'll release the lock.
After the release of Dino Crisis 3, it has been over 17 years now, and still, Capcom hasn't published another game in the series. It is safe to say that if Dino Crisis was like Friday the 13th, then the third game was like Jason X, and that's us being polite. The uncomfortably long pause has raised a few questions as to the possible reasons for the downfall. In this video, we will take a quick look at the fascinating turn of fortune for Dino Crisis and explore all the games in detail. We will also explain the possible causes and look into the potential future of this series. The initial glory of the Dino Crisis franchise. Before we look into what went wrong, let us first take you through the early days. Back in the 90s, Capcom was a big deal, and they had established themselves as one of the finest in the business with the release of their first Resident Evil game. Its crazy popularity prompted them to reuse the formula of survival horror. This is when they came up with the idea for Dino Crisis. Just like Resident Evil, the storyline was interesting, and the amazing characters made things even better. In fact, this game had a fully rendered 3D environment, which even the first three Resident Evil games did not have. So how did things go downhill from this high? Well, let us scan through the games in the franchise and explore their nitty-gritty to find the answers. Dino Crisis, 1999. The game is set 10 years in the future. Dr. Edward Kirk was a world-renowned scientist, and he was presumed to be dead for 3 years. But it turns out that he is leading a secret weapons program. The Operation Raid Team sends in 4 agents named Rick, Regina, Gale, and Cooper to bring in this rogue scientist. They are dropped under the cover of darkness, but Cooper lands off course into a distant jungle. He is stalked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex and eaten up, while the others are unaware of his fate and go ahead with the mission. However, they soon find out that the facility has been overrun by dinosaurs. The security guard and scientists are found mutilated, and the first task that the team takes up is to restore the power to the facility. Gale goes missing all of a sudden, and Regina is attacked by a velociraptor. She somehow manages to escape and is reunited with Rick. They still have to find Dr. Kirk, but now the priority is to signal for a rescue. Regina ventures out to establish contact, and when another dinosaur attacks, Gale saves her. The communication system is restored and a signal is received, but Gale is not too keen to respond because it could be Dr. Kirk. Rick, however, is intent on investigating the signals because he believes that it could be Cooper in trouble. You have to choose your actions and the consequences will pan out accordingly. Eventually, Dr. Kirk is nabbed and his plans are revealed. He somehow brought the dinosaurs to their time, and there can be a way to restore things. According to the choices you make, various endings await you, but in all cases, you would have to fight a T-Rex and escape the island. In fact, one of the endings shows how the whole thing was a plan hatched by the government to use Dr. Kirk's findings for warfare. The game was created for the original PlayStation, and it provides a unique world where Resident Evil meets Jurassic Park. The creators replaced the zombies with dinosaurs, and the thrill quotient is kept intact. It is exciting for the player because the dinosaurs get smarter as the game progresses, and the challenges grow steeper. The gameplay is actually quite scary, and many kids couldn't go ahead with the tense atmosphere until they were much older. The detailed graphics made things a lot better, and even the sound is top-notch for this game. The moments when the dinosaurs creep up on you can give you the jitters. Dino Crisis scores over Resident Evils 1 and 2 in terms of its speed. The attacks are realistically fast, and you must always be on the lookout for a nasty surprise. The moment when the dinosaurs team up against you is a definitive one, and if you've seen Jurassic Park, you will know how to escape. The controls might be similar to Resident Evil, but you have to manage things a lot better, because the slow zombie movements are gone. There's some interesting puzzles along the way, and these will keep you on the edge of your seat. One of the biggest positives about Dino Crisis is the watertight story. It keeps you hooked onto the narrative, and it is certainly better than the Jurassic Park games. We would have liked a bit more variety in the dinosaurs and weapons, but these are nothing to complain about. The action and intensity are unquestionable, and the gorehounds will be pleased with the amount of violence as well. Dino Crisis 2, 2000. Sometimes the immediate success of a game drives the makers to come up with a rushed sequel, and that doesn't always bode well. When Dino Crisis 2 was released, it was also quite popular, but the game sold way less than its predecessor. This is also the point where the franchise started to get a bit shaky. One of the main issues with 2 was that it departed from the tried and tested formula of survival horror. However, it still maintained the same universe and followed the same story as the first game's heroine. We continue from the events of Dino Crisis 1, and by now, Dr. Kirk's research on managing the space-time paradox is prospering at a government-run research outpost. However, there's been another mishap, and an entire region encompassing the laboratory complex has been displaced. Somehow, a jungle populated with specimens of the Cretaceous era has taken over. This accident prompts the deployment of a rescue team, and Regina is one of those agents. However, the rescue team is soon attacked by velociraptors, and except for 3 of them, Regina, Lieutenant Dylan, and David, all the others are killed. Regina and Dylan are together, and David gets separated.
We're surrounded.
They decide to split up to cover more ground, and they come across strange leather-clad helmeted inhabitants. These inhabitants are hostile towards them, but their leader, named Paula, is captured. She seems to have a strange connection with Dylan, and eventually, we learn more about what actually happened. There had been a major snag in the time alterations, and it came to a point where the entire Earth was threatened. History could be rewritten such as that humans would never exist. And to fix this problem, an international organization decided to move the creatures to a similar environment, 3 million years into the future. They then planned to send them back to their time and set everything right. However, the time gate was destroyed, and the team ended up being trapped with the dinosaurs. Their children were saved, and they were nurtured in life support chambers. They had lost their ability to speak and developed an instinct to protect the dinosaurs. These children became the strange people that Regina and Dylan had encountered, and we learn that Dylan himself had come from the future, and Paula is his daughter. Ultimately, just as they're about to evacuate, the self-destruct system is activated. Paula is trapped, and Dylan decides to stay back with her, and sends Regina home with the data that could save the world before being destroyed. As we mentioned before, Dino Crisis is more of a shoot-'em-up game. The weapon choices are broadened, and you can pick from machine guns to flamethrowers, anti-tank rifles, rocket launchers, and so forth. This time around, the character is always on the run, and you don't have to trouble yourself to press the run button like in the first game. Ammo is no longer an issue, and the variety of dinosaurs has been expanded. The core theme of the gameplay is the excitement as you annihilate hordes of dinosaurs, and the point system made sure that you no longer needed to worry about the item management. In addition, the artwork and level designs are quite astounding, and it definitely takes a step ahead of the slow-paced Resident Evil narrative. All that being said, however, it was certainly not a survival horror game, eliminating the tension and charm of puzzles and horror. Many love Dino Crisis 2, but it is probably the last time that the series came up with something great. It had moments that signaled the fall, and deviated from the tried and tested formula is certainly one of them. This game was still popular enough to warrant a spin-off and a sequel, and this is precisely where the series made its first fatal mistake. Dino Stalker and Dungeon in Chaos. Dino Stalker was published by Capcom exclusively for the PlayStation 2. It is one of the light gun shooters by Capcom, the likes of which we had previously seen from the Resident Evil counterparts. This game tried to bridge the gap between the traditional entries that offer greater control and the light gun variants. The story is about Mike Wired, a fighter pilot from the World War II era. He is shot down in combat, and is somehow transported to a time where dinosaurs exist. He meets Paula from Dino Crisis 2, and he moves through the stages guided by her father Dylan. Mike then has to fight hordes of deadly dinos, and he even takes on their powerful and intelligent leader, Trinity. He also starts falling for Paula, but he has to go back to his own time to prevent his own death. It is Paula who saves him and helps him to get back to his own world. This first-person shooter offers you a variety of weapons to utilize against the dinosaurs. You have the likes of machine guns, shotguns, bazookas, and many others, although you can only equip one at a time. The game environment constitutes deserts and jungles, and you can unlock a 2-player mode after completing the entire campaign. Dino Stalker is not the best looking title, and the graphics leave a lot to be desired. There may be way too many levels, and the clunky controls can make things quite frustrating at times. Your hands will literally start paining from all the button mashing and using a single hand to move and shoot that will take a toll on your muscles. Dino Stalker is basically a mindless first-person shooter, and if you're looking for any resemblance of Dino Crisis 1 or even 2, you might as well stay away. Dungeon in Chaos is a mobile game that was published by Mobile Capcom. The story follows another experiment with third energy at some research facility. After a sudden accident, there's an abrupt loss of radio contact, and a special forces team is ordered to look into the matter.
You again? You just won't give up, will you? Time to bury you with the rest of the dino book.
Upon reaching the facility, they find that it has been overrun by dinosaurs. However, they must still stay in the dinosaur-infested building and shut down the third energy reactor. The objective is rather simple. You just have to survive the dinosaur attacks. The only good thing about Dungeon in Chaos is the changing environment that ensures that you won't get too familiar even after playing it multiple times. Usually, all you have is a handgun, but you can choose special attacks wisely to cause more damage. This is like any other mobile game without the complications, and not an entry that would make the franchise proud.
Thanks for coming.
Dino Crisis 3, 2003. The narrative is premised in the year 2548, and it has now been more than 300 years that Earth has lost contact with a spaceship named the Ozymandias. When it is spotted near Jupiter, a team is sent in to probe things, but something unexpected changes the plans completely. On approaching Ozymandias, the spaceship is hit with lasers, and the front cockpit is blown away. Many members of the team die, while the survivors board the Ozymandias.
What is this?
This game was initially planned for both Xbox and PlayStation 2, but eventually the latter was scrapped. A glaring problem with 3 was the absurdity of the plot. The storyline is premised 500 years following the events of the original games. We have a set of new characters, and even the dinosaurs have mutated through some bizarre cloning process. One of the largest flaws with this gameplay is the fixed camera perspective that was used in the first 2 titles. However, this time, the protagonist can zoom around using jetpacks, and the archaic camera system cannot keep up with such speed. We will never understand what exactly happened with Capcom to make them stoop to this kind of level. Allowing a game with such high potential like Dino Crisis 3 to slip into a dead end is nothing less than criminal. Fans of this series will be utterly disappointed with whatever this game has to offer. It is at best a missed opportunity in order to advance the series, but we can't say it's any better than a mediocre effort. In fact, the only good thing in the entire game is the way that the cinematics are overdone, and the graphics are shiny. In the end, fighting in space could not have got much worse. Future of the franchise. Dino Crisis 3 was a commercial disaster and sold barely 600,000 copies. Capcom realized that some serious damage had been done, and they put this series in an indefinite coma. Capcom did use some elements of Dino Crisis in other games, such as the character Regina and her cosplay outfit. Dino Crisis fans have always been vocal about their desires to see the series extended. In 2014, rumors were doing the rounds that the official Xbox magazine would come up with an announcement for Dino Crisis 4. However, there was no truth in them, and we have nothing positive to offer on this note. In fact, some of the people associated with the franchise have revealed that there have been no internal discussions to reboot the franchise. It would be a pity if this series ended prematurely, because these games would be a showstopper with modern hardware and graphics.
I refuse to die in this dump!
So, will there ever be a Dino Crisis game again? Well, things don't look too good, especially with Capcom hitting the big bucks with the success of the Resident Evil and Monster Hunter franchises. Common sense dictates that they could continue with their success stories, instead of trying to revive a series that stopped working a long time ago. There are several developers who would jump at the opportunity, but Capcom doesn't seem too keen on such prospects. A malicious ransomware cyber attack on Capcom revealed that they don't have any such plans till 2024, and you would have to be way too optimistic to still hope for a Dino Crisis in the near future. That being the case, while it might be an unrealistic and even unobtainable expectation, if Dino Crisis 4 comes together someday, it might be something worth watching out for.